In this video, we'll be talking about for the threat for some severe weather in the Central Plains and as well for the big time threat for portions of the western Dixie Alley region. But we're going to be seeing some decent CAPE values here overnight into Wednesday morning, and it's going to really allow for the threat for some potential supercells to develop across Oklahoma, Kansas, and as well even far northern Texas, with a pretty good chance, at least according to the SCP, for some tornadoes. However, a lot of this event will be capped, so a lot of that severe weather development could be limited, and it really won't be too shabby. However, Dixie Alley is a completely different story here. We're watching for some very favorable conditions here, and very, very little cap here within the general region, so really watching specifically for Dixie Alley for some severe weather. But before we get into the forecast, I would recommend that whoever is not subscribed and watching this video does subscribe to the channel here, because as we get deeper into the severe weather season, there's going to be a lot bigger events possibly, and I'll be live streaming then and making uploads on that, so who knows whether it can impact your area. So if you subscribe, you can get all that content and get the latest information, and as well hit the bell icon so you can get notified as soon as I post or make it a community post or even live stream, so you can get the fastest information and most reliable information very quickly. And as well, I would recommend smashing that like button, not only so I know you guys like the video, but so we can get the algorithm to recommend this video towards other people. But without further ado, let's get into the forecast. So this is a look now at day 2 here, and we still have that slight risk here for portions of the Central Plains and portions of the Ozarks. So we have much of southeastern Kansas, northwestern Oklahoma, and as well portions of western, or specifically southwestern Missouri here. And that slight risk does include around 3 million people, including Wichita, Lawrence, Joplin, and Salina. And so the marginal risk, which is surrounding much of the plains, includes portions of Oklahoma City, Kansas City, Omaha, Tulsa, and as well Lincoln. So going all the way from southern Oklahoma up into portions of Missouri, upper Missouri, portions of Nebraska, and Iowa. Tornado threat's going to be very, very low with this event as a result of the potential very high cap. So like I did say, models are showing some pretty good conditions such as CAPE, very warm temperatures, very nice amount of helicity, but all that really won't be anything if there's extreme amounts of cap here that's going to really prevent a lot of the supercells to develop, which is why we only have a 2% chance and why we only have a slight risk here. If there weren't nearly as much cap or cap at all, there could very well be an enhanced risk, but 2% chance for tornadoes is very well likely to stay where it is there, including Wichita, Salina, Grand Island, Hutchinson, and Kearney. So much of central Kansas, southern Nebraska, and northern Oklahoma. The biggest threat's actually going to be the wind threat, as well some hail. So that's not really the biggest threat here, because even though there may not be some big supercells to bring in tornadic activity, there is still going to be severe weather Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. There's still going to be severe weather. However, it's going to be very limited to maybe a few cells, nothing outbreak-wise, nothing like 3-hour time frame of supercells. It's going to be a very small time frame where severe weather can very well develop, and if those do develop, it's going to be mainly hail and the wind threat here, as they're going to be really be very elevated, and obviously most likely won't be big supercells with hook echoes or anything like that, just some small or maybe some slight severe thunderstorms that could bring in some hail and winds. So now going to day 3 here. So this is actually going to be the Wednesday into Thursday event. And this, if anything, if we see anything too crazy this week, it will happen on this day, Wednesday night to Thursday morning. And that's because we may not see as much CAPE with 3,000 joules per kilogram up in the Central Plains. But we're not going to see any cap whatsoever. We may have some scattered areas with some cap, but really overall, there's not going to be any cap here. So nothing to really prevent any activity here. We're also going to be seeing some really nice amounts of shear. We're going to be seeing some very warm temperatures, very high dew points, relative humidity up to 100%. So we're really talking some pretty favorable conditions here. So if anything, this could be an enhanced risk. We could have a small and very, very small enhanced risk within this area here. And there's a chance we could extend a slight risk more into Tennessee and more near the border with Alabama. But the slight risk here, this definitely has the best chance to be an enhanced risk. I don't see a moderate risk at this point, but I do see an enhanced risk possibly being issued here by tomorrow, or if anything, by day 1 here. So this slight risk does include about around 6 million people if you round it up, including Memphis, Tennessee, Shreveport, Louisiana, Little Rock, Arkansas, Jackson, Mississippi, and Longview, Texas. So we have a pretty decent area of the slight risk includes much of western Dixie Alley, really, so kind of more towards that western boundary where Dixie Alley is. And then a very, very widespread marginal risk because we are going to see some severe storms stretching all the way up from the Midwest towards Dixie Alley, specifically on Thursday morning here. So that's why we have up to 20 million people in that marginal risk for some severe weather. It includes Kansas City, Missouri. Again, you guys are under a marginal. New Orleans, Louisiana, St. Louis, Missouri, Baton Rouge, and Des Moines, Iowa. So here's now a look at the NAM3 kilometer here, which goes 60 hours out. This is the latest update here on this run. So we go in the next 42 hours or so, we are going to start seeing some slight severe weather developing. This is going to be this is actually, let me go back a little bit here to the main day we're going to be watching out actually. So we get into Tuesday. So Tuesday, we go to Tuesday night. That's kind of when the severe weather is going to start developing. Some scattered small thunderstorms across central Kansas, a few in southern Nebraska, but not going to be anything too crazy. But it's going to be very late Tuesday here. It's going to be near midnight at this point. And then we get out to Wednesday morning here. This is not going to get towards really around 5 a.m. That's when we're going to start seeing some significant, not significant, but I guess some stronger, maybe one or two supercells developing across south central Kansas. If anything does develop to tomorrow night into Wednesday morning, it will be in south central Kansas most likely. But like I did, oops, I didn't want to do that. But like I did say, this is going to be a very, very limited event as a result of the cap. So we are going to be seeing some severe weather. I mean, it could be. We could definitely see some strong thunderstorms within the region here as we get into now Wednesday morning across southeastern Kansas. Some storms maybe in as far north as north central Oklahoma. But like I said, a lot of it is going to be limited, very high cap. The rest of the conditions are very favorable. And that's why I said this could very well be an enhanced risk if there weren't as much cap or cap at all. But since there's so much cap, I mean, extremely high cap, this is going to stay at a slight risk. I mean, there's no way we're gonna get enhanced risk for Tuesday into Wednesday. And then of course as we get later into Wednesday throughout the day, that severe weather will start to make its way across the eastward region into the Ozarks and portions of the upper Midwest. Let's go ahead and check out the temperatures here. So we're gonna be looking at the conditions and why it looks favorable at first and why there could still be some severe weather. But then we'll be talking about after all this why it's going to be limited to nothing really too crazy and why there won't be an enhanced risk or a level up. So getting the highs on Tuesday, we're going to be seeing some really, really high temperature or warm temperatures here into a Tuesday evening here, tomorrow afternoon across much of the South Central, specifically Texas, where we actually may get into the high 90s. But where we're watching where we have that slight risk, including areas of Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, even portion of the tip there of Arkansas, we do actually have some very warm temperatures up into anywhere from the lower 70s to portions of the low 80s. So we're going to be still either way, we're going to be seeing some very warm temperatures into tomorrow afternoon, which is going to really allow for a lot of buildup and accumulation of those CAPE values. And as we now get later into early Wednesday morning here around early Wednesday morning, we're going to start seeing those temperatures obviously decreasing, but we're still going to be seeing some pretty darn warm temperatures up into the high 60s or low 70s. That's still very likely, or at least those temperatures are likely still to produce some pretty nice CAPE in as a result of maybe some severe development that could very well be the result of that. And still getting into later, I believe getting toward around 2 a.m. something like that. We're going to start seeing these temperatures really kind of going down a little bit, but we're still going to be seeing some mid-60s here across southeastern Kansas, and still going to be seeing some 70s overnight across portions of Oklahoma. So even far north central Oklahoma, we got to keep a close eye on. If anything does happen, maybe just some supercells, maybe one or two supercells, there's a good chance that if the worst, whatever, all right, so basically, yes, Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, really won't be anything too crazy at all. No, really very low chance for tornadoes if there's any at all, and still some pretty lower chances for wind and hail. But if anything does happen on that event, it's going to possibly happen in north central Oklahoma or south central Kansas, and those temperatures rapidly cool off there, and that's going to really allow for some really warm temperatures across much of the eastern United States here, some widespread 70s all the way from the Gulf Coast to Lake Michigan. And as we now get later into now Thursday morning here, or Wednesday night, kind of Wednesday nights, this is now at 6 p.m. here, 7 p.m. We're going to start seeing severe weather development across portions of western Dixie Alley. We're going to be seeing some really nice temperatures here, up to even as high as the upper 70s here, widespread 60s across Tennessee, portions of Mississippi there, northern Louisiana, and Arkansas, which is kind of where we do have that slight risk, and as well portions of Oklahoma and Texas. So very, very nice temperatures there into now 8 p.m. Still even some 70s into portions of northern Texas there, which is kind of where we have that slight risk still. And we're still going to be seeing some pretty nice 60s and even some 70s still across Mississippi there, western Tennessee. So even up into not around 10 o'clock, we're still going to be seeing some pretty good temperatures, specifically across these areas here, which is where we still have a slight risk. Still seeing some mid-60s to as high as upper 60s, near 66 degrees, 67 there across portions of the far western Dixie Alley overnight. And then by midnight, these temperatures are going to really start to fall apart there. You're now going to start getting some 50s there across the Ozarks. And these 60s are still going to be in the low 60s, but again, that's going to really limit that severe weather development. So let's go ahead now and check a look at the CAPE values here for Tuesday into Wednesday morning. So like I did say, with these very high warm temperatures here, sorry, with these very warm temperatures, we're going to be seeing some really nice CAPE values, actually getting some widespread 3,000 or widespread 2,000 to 2,500. But we're also going to be seeing a little small area here that can nearly get around 2,500, 2,600 joules per kilogram. So we're going to be seeing some pretty decent CAPE values here across south central Kansas, going all the way up into the western half of Oklahoma, which is where we could still see maybe some slight severe weather. But going later now into the overnight hours, around 8 o'clock into Tuesday, we're going to be seeing numbers actually over 3,000 joules per kilogram across portions of the southern border with Oklahoma and Kansas there. So we're going to be seeing still, if there was no cap, there could definitely be some significant severe weather with this event because these very nice CAPE values. But as we now get later now overnight, these CAPE values are going to rapidly decrease. But we're going to have a very, very small time frame where we could possibly have some favorable conditions for some severe weather throughout these whole areas here. So keeping a close eye on that area. So if you live in that region, northwestern Oklahoma and possibly south central Kansas, I wouldn't really I guess worry about it, but I would just keep a close eye on it because there could be a small time frame where there could be some severe weather really blowing up, or not blowing up, but developing at least. I guess I could say that. And there's still a 2% chance for tornadoes. I doubt there's going to be any tornadoes with this event. Maybe one scattered one, but I doubt there's going to be any widespread tornadoes or big tornado threats in general. So I wouldn't really freak out about it if you're in northwestern Oklahoma and south central Kansas. But you guys have the best chance for severe weather development when it comes to this whole event. So that's still something to keep a close eye on. So then let's now look at the helicity here, which is kind of around this, basically the amount of spin in the atmosphere, of course. So basically, the higher the spin in the atmosphere, the better the chance for severe development, and as well for tornadic activity. So you probably look at these numbers here and say, "Holy cow, these are very high." I mean, they are going overnight here, 9 o'clock on Tuesday. We're going to be seeing numbers up to possibly in the high 300s and even low 400s, and that screams potential tornado. That screams severe weather towards us. But like I did say, these conditions all look pretty good. The CAPE looks pretty good. I'm about to show you guys the supercell composite parameter and the SCP, which is going to make you freak out if you're in these areas. But then I'm going to show you guys the CAP values, and you guys are going to be like, oh, nothing's going to happen. So look at this. We're going to get nearly 500 on this, on the helicity scale here. So we're going to be seeing kind of on the top end of the scale here, and this is basically the surface, basically 0 to 1 kilometer. So this is kind of where kind of a little bit higher, just high, I guess the lower part of the atmosphere here, not too far from the surface there. And these numbers are getting up to possibly nearly 500 across west central there, Oklahoma, south central portion of Oklahoma, Kansas could very well go over 400, and even portions of far north central Texas. But let's now go 0 to 3 kilometer, and they're even showing some higher numbers. So this is going to be a little bit higher in the atmosphere. If any storms will develop, it will most likely be in this general region here. And we're going to get some really high numbers, up to possibly 780, nearly 800. That's kind of still pretty high on the scale here. It's kind of a little bit up there in the higher end of the scale, getting nearly possibly 800, 890 is the latest value there. And that's going to be really alarming for those people in Oklahoma and Kansas. Look at these numbers. That's really going to freak you out. I mean, I would definitely, if I saw this, I'd be like, holy cow, oh, shoot. And yes, the CAPE is good. The temperatures are good. The dew points are good. But just wait till you see the cap. Another thing that's going to make these people here in the South Central, or at least people in general, think this could very well be a significant event, is going to be looking at the SCP values here, the supercell composite index or supercell composite parameter. So this is kind of a scale from anywhere from from 0 to surpass 50 here. So anything really past the 20s, I guess, considered moderate, to possibly even anything past 30 is considered high. So as we now get later into around the evening hours, around 7 o'clock there on Tuesday or tomorrow, we're going to be seeing some pretty good readings here, anywhere from as high as 19.6 here. So starting out pretty good here, some widespread teens there. And it's going to kind of be more focused on the west central portion of Oklahoma. And I bet a lot of people are watching this video saying, okay, but there's not even a risk. There's actually only a marginal for this area. How is there no slight risk? We have the highest CAPE values here, the highest helicity here, and the highest supercell composite index numbers here. Why is there no marginal? And that's because it's all going to be capped. So there's really no point putting a big threat or a slight risk for these areas if it's going to get all capped out. And actually, the highest cap will actually be in this area as well. But even a big concerning number, getting nearly a 27 here for west central Oklahoma there, some 20s there into central Texas there, and even some higher numbers reaching into the double digits as far north as Kansas. And that's going to continue there to be a trend for these areas until really as we get to like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., these numbers are going to rapidly fall apart here. But again, very concerning numbers here, getting nearly, if you round it up, basically 27, 28. So that's definitely a pretty high number. And it's definitely going to lead people to think there's going to be widespread supercells across Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. But in reality, there's going to be maybe small chances for some supercells to develop across north central Oklahoma and south central Kansas, basically. If anything, we're going to be seeing if we're going to see any big time severe weather in this event, it's going to be wind and hail, and definitely not widespread supercells and tornadoes. Now, this one I know is going to definitely debate people thinking it's going to be a pretty big outbreak, because look at this now, looking at the STP values or significant tornado parameter. We're actually be seeing some really darn high numbers here, getting up to possibly a 12 out of a 10. So that's showing you very high confidence tomorrow evening, tomorrow night near dusk, for some big time significant tornadoes here across west central or southwestern Oklahoma there, north central Texas there, and just much of western Oklahoma. Look at that. Getting really high numbers. This is going to be very concerning. If I were to look at this, I would say, holy cow, I need a live stream on this right now. So yes, we're seeing extremely high helicity numbers, extremely high SCP numbers, and some pretty high supercell composite parameter numbers, and really a nice amount of shear, nice amount of CAPE, and as well nice amount of relative humidity. So what could be limiting this whole event to being only at a slight risk? Like, people are probably wondering, how is this not enhanced? How is this not a moderate yet? And I'm going to show you right after this slide why we have not gone a level up yet, and why this won't be a significant tornado outbreak. There could be a small time frame where there could be some widespread amount of thunderstorms, but they most likely won't bring in tornadoes. They could bring in some nice amounts of hail and some pretty gusty winds, but nothing big with tornadoes. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys why this event is going to be very limited and won't be an enhanced risk or moderate risk, or won't be a big tornado outbreak. Like, every condition is showing favorable, possibly like the 12 in the SCP scale. I mean, boy, that is extremely concerning if you see that number at all. But in this case, it's not going to be too concerning here. I mean, we only have a 2% chance for tornadoes for a very good reason, and we only have a slight risk for a good reason. And people who don't really understand, I'm about to show you guys why. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the CAPE values here. Pivotal weather, and we're looking at pivotal weather because we're going to be looking at the soundings here. So looking at really Tuesday evening here, you can see some pretty good CAPE values here. Not too shabby. Oops, I don't want to look at that sounding here. Looking at possibly around 2,000 joules per kilogram, basically. So the big area of concern based on the models is kind of outside that main slight risk here. I mean, outside the slight risk for western Oklahoma here, but on the edge of the slight risk here for southern south central Kansas. So let's look at the readings here where we've seen some very consistent high numbers. And as you see, we only have a severe weather hazard here, and we do have some really high amounts of CAPE here. We have some pretty nice amounts of CAPE here, but let's go later into the event here, more towards the south here. We're going to be seeing some pretty nice amounts of, actually, let me go ahead and show you guys a different sounding here. There we go, guys. I finally found the actual CAP, model here, or where the CAP is on pivotal weather. So looking at the CAP here, so you want to see the lowest amounts of CAP possible. You don't want to have like a 0. You want to kind of have it between 25 and I'd say maybe 40 is kind of the best number you want to have on CAP. You don't want to have it at 0, but you don't want to have it extremely high. And look at this. This is now very late into Tuesday evening here. So we kind of saw the severe weather according to the NAM around maybe 6 o'clock starting to begin. So this is kind of just around this time here. You see, right, we're watching that severe weather across portions of the south central Kansas there, as well portions of far west central Oklahoma. We're going to be seeing some really high amounts of CAP here. Look at that. 258 there, very high. You don't want to have anything over 200, basically. Nothing over 200. If it's over 200, there's going to be really no development of severe weather. And look at that, across much of south central Kansas, getting nearly 400 on the numbers here. And we go later on now into early Wednesday. It's going to get even higher. I mean, we're going to be seeing some numbers are really around 170 there, but that's really cutting it very close here. 200 there across portions of south central Oklahoma. So let's go ahead and look at a sounding here. Let's see if we have anything there. So you see very high CAP. You see the amount of CAP because its temperature kind of overlaps with the dotted line, the dashed line, which means there's going to be some really nice amount of CAP right here. We're also seeing very little shear, only around 29 knots there, up to 3 kilometers there as well. We're not seeing any extreme amounts of spin in the atmosphere when it comes to the hodograph, and we are seeing a decent reading on the Slinky, but of course it's all going to cap out here. So you see very, very high CAP. Let's go down to south central Oklahoma. Again, capping out, negative 310, no severe weather threat. And now getting towards south central Kansas, capping out, no severe weather threat. So that's exactly why there won't be a significant tornado outbreak or severe weather outbreak for Tuesday night into Wednesday, even if the models are showing extremely favorable conditions. Alright, so now let's go ahead into Dixie Alley here. So that was a long discussion on the South Central, but let's go ahead and talk about the Dixie Alley region now. So we're going to be seeing some pretty darn good conditions here. Or not good conditions, but some pretty strong storms developing across the Dixie Alley area. So once we get now outside of the Oklahoma region, Kansas, and within that severe weather will become a lot more favorable for development here. So as we get later now into getting to Wednesday here through the mid-afternoon areas around 5 o'clock, we're going to start seeing that severe weather developing across Dixie Alley. Some pretty strong storms developing across northern Texas there, northern Louisiana, portions of Arkansas, and even some severe weather could very well develop as far north as southern Missouri. But that's going to cut it very close, as we're going to be seeing some pretty cold temperatures like at this time frame across Missouri. At least southern Missouri getting into like the lower 60s and upper 50s as a result of the cold fronts in the north. But now getting into late Wednesday here, nearly 11 o'clock here, we're going to be seeing some pretty big severe weather possibly across Jackson, Mississippi there, across Mississippi in general, western Tennessee, and we go back just a little bit here and late into around 8 o'clock, where we probably may see the peak of the severe weather for this event here across Arkansas, Missouri. Sorry, not Missouri. I meant to say Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas there, kind of where we have that slight risk, and even far western Tennessee. And then even as far as like around 2 a.m., we could possibly have some slight severe weather, but it most likely will kind of be more of a QoCS at this point with some linear storms from Alabama, Mississippi there. So we may have some severe storms even making their way into the southeast later as late as Thursday, late morning here. So not going to be too shabby there for those areas, but still watching out for areas such as Mississippi there, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Tennessee, even portions of Texas and Missouri. Let's go ahead and look at the shear here, 500 millibar wind speed here in knots. So this is kind of around, I guess, a good value. I believe this is 5,700 meters in the air. So it's deep. It's definitely where I guess we can have some severe development there far up in the general region of the atmosphere. So as you see, let's actually go all the way up into around, this is around 5 o'clock here Wednesday, which is kind of when we may see that as that severe weather developing as early as around 5 o'clock there, and we're going to be seeing some pretty good amount of shear, specifically where we're watching that severe weather to develop early on to Louisiana, Arkansas, and Texas, and then it'll make its way to the northeast. So the severe weather is going to develop kind of here first. I could say here first, and then it'll make its way kind of towards the northeast from Mississippi and Tennessee. So we're going to be seeing some pretty good amount of shear into the Wednesday late afternoon, evening hours. We can possibly get over 60 knots of shear, and then we continue later into around 11 o'clock when it kind of makes its way towards Mississippi. We're going to see some pretty good shear here as well, over possibly 40 knots, kind of seeing even scattered areas of 55, 58 knots there across southern Mississippi, but going to be seeing well over 40 knots across much of western Dixie Alley, and that'll continue to become we're going to be seeing a lot more shear though as we get later into the end of the event into a Thursday morning, where we could possibly have some slight severe weather across Dixie Alley and Alabama, Mississippi there. And we're going to be seeing really high amounts of shear there as well. But let's go ahead and go to the surface wind speed here and see exactly how much shear we're going to be seeing on the surface. And it's going to be very crazy. I mean, we're basically almost on the surface here because we're at 920 millibar wind speed. So this is going to be not too far off the surface. So getting at around 5 o'clock here when the severe weather could start to develop across the far southern portion of Dixie Alley, kind of right here. Or maybe it's really high amount of shear, actually getting well over 40 knots in that region here. So I'm going to specifically, maybe I'd say around 40. Actually, no, we're going to get around 38 knots. It's 40 knots. But as we can continue throughout the evening hours, continue throughout the evening hours here. Oops, I was actually looking at the wrong time. I was looking at in the morning. That was 5 a.m. Sorry, guys. That's 5 a.m. Let's go to 5 p.m. So looking at 5 p.m., we're seeing a lot higher shear. That makes sense there. A lot higher. So you're going to get well over 40 knots there. Some scattered areas of possibly over 46 and 50 knots across Arkansas. And then we get later into the evening hours, we're going to be seeing some really nice amount of shear in the late evening hours. And at near dusk, going to get some scattered areas of possibly over 50 knots, but some widespread areas around 40 to 50 knots across western Dixie Alley. So looking at pretty favorable conditions in general. Let's go ahead and look at the dew points to see exactly. The dew points are going to be very favorable as well, getting some pretty nice 60s across this region. And this is around, this is actually 7 a.m. Wednesday. I'm looking at the morning hours on Wednesday. Let's go to around, this is around, let's say 2 o'clock Wednesday. Some really high amounts of dew points, actually getting into the upper 60s there. Nearly 70-degree dew points across portions of far southern Dixie Alley. And if we continue now across 7 p.m., we're going to see some pretty widespread dew points of 60s and even nearly 70-degree dew points across northern Louisiana and as well across portions of Texas and Mississippi into the evening hours. And then getting around 9 o'clock here, 10 o'clock, we're still going to be seeing some really widespread 60s for dew points, so pretty favorable for some severe weather development. So why is this event Dixie Alley not going to be a bust and possibly actually be pretty significant out of all the events this week here? And that's because actually, if I can move my screen a little bit more so I can actually see the actual time frame. There we go. So looking at here, getting towards, this is going to be Wednesday evening here. So this is now too far Wednesday evening here. We're going to be seeing some very low amounts of some scattered areas around maybe 70, 140, some scattered areas of 230, but in reality, we're seeing very little amount of cap where we're watching for that main severe weather. See, even northern Texas may see just less than 100, so that's not too shabby. 30 there. We're seeing some scattered areas around 16 there. So we're still going to be seeing some scattered amount of cap into Thursday morning here. We're going to be seeing some scattered areas of 60, 70. And 70 is not bad. 30 is not bad at all. 60 is not bad. So we're going to be seeing some very low amount of cap, and even into like late Thursday morning, we're starting to be seeing some very little amount of cap. So this is exactly why this event can possibly be a little bit more significant. And let's show you guys maybe some soundings here. Let's actually go to some soundings here. Let's go look at this one, possibly see what this is showing here. So actually, let me actually find the right time frame for you guys. So let's go ahead and now check out some soundings here across. Oh, this is going to be like Wednesday evening here. So we're going to Arkansas here. We're going to be seeing possibly a marginal tornado threat here. And these soundings aren't too good because look at the CAPE here. We're going to be getting up to around 700 CAPE. So that's not going to be too good whatsoever. Also, critical angles only around 56. But we're also going to be seeing some slight amount of shear across portions of Arkansas this time frame. Let's go down near the Missouri border. We're going to be seeing really a no threat for severe weather across that area. Let's go later into the evening hours near Louisiana. We're going to be seeing a chance for some tornadoes. We're going to be seeing some higher CAPE, getting nearly 1,100 joules per kilogram there. Seeing some pretty good precipitated water there, around nearly 2 inches. If you round it up, BRN shear is pretty high, near 75 on that scale. Very little cap. We see pretty good temperatures around 70 degrees there with 65-degree dew point. LFC is pretty high in the atmosphere, around 3 kilometers, so pretty good. This is a pretty good sounding here for northern Louisiana. We have a tornado hazard, and we actually have some slight amount of rotation in the atmosphere as this hodograph is going up and to the right. So this is definitely not too bad of a hodograph reading here, up to a 63 critical angle and 71 degree on the slinky. That's actually not bad whatsoever here, and that's definitely likely for some severe weather for sure. Going towards Texas here, a marginal severe weather threat, we have actually 1,300 CAPE. And we're going to be seeing this shear and winds all over the place here. You see, look at the hodograph, those winds are all over the place. Critical angle 35, so that's not going to be a big threat for Texas. But getting down to portions of Arkansas, carrying on here, not really a big threat there whatsoever. Going now later on into possibly the main event here into Wednesday evening. That's when things are going to get possibly a little bit crazier, up to 1,400 CAPE. The Slinkies not too shabby, 68 degrees there. The BRN shear is not too bad, but it's not too great. It's kind of between there at 46, but as we get in the higher atmosphere, we're going to be seeing some pretty good amount of shear there, nearly 44, 51, so pretty good there. 1,400 CAPE, 70 degrees, 66 dew points, not too shabby at all. Going into southern Arkansas, marginal severe weather threat there. And that's going to be mainly a threat, or it's going to be mainly marginal because not going to be see extreme amount of shear there. Going into now portions of Arkansas, let's go ahead and see what we got there. Marginal severe weather threat there. Going to Mississippi, let's see what we have there. We do have a severe weather threat. 1,600 CAPE there. Actually going to possibly see up to lifted index around -5. So we're seeing a pretty big difference between the couplets, or sorry, not the couplets there, but the water molecules and the actual atmosphere within it. The LFC, those pretty low, but we're still seeing some pretty good amount of storm relative helicity, getting at around 138 on the actual surface, but 179 around the up, or a little bit higher in the atmosphere. That's not too shabby at all. And as we now go portions in northern Louisiana, we're not seeing too bad of a reading there. 2,200 CAPE there. Looking at possibly 230 there on the storm relative helicity. Getting not too bad of a slinky there, 74 degrees. And as well, getting a BRN at 42. That's not too high. But PW, or precipitated water, is around 2 inches there. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I do apologize if it was very long. And I'll see you guys later.